I'm Martha Lane Fox. I am President of the British Chambers of Commerce and Chancellor of the Open University, which, as I've said before, are the two best jobs in the world, so I feel very lucky. Welcome to our podcast about skills in the UK. And I'm thrilled today to drill down a bit more locally and regionally with Alwen Williams, who's come to us from Ambition North Wales. Brilliant job title.
Yeah.
Alwen, I'd love to hear what you do. We're going to talk a bit more about those regional differences and what we can do at a more hyper-local level to really address the challenges. So welcome, Alwen. Do you want to tell us what Ambition North Wales is? I have my own personal Ambition North Wales, which I just described to you because I'm trying to climb Snowdon and raise some money soon. But I think that's probably not what your job is.
No, I wish it was, though. So Ambition North Wales is a partnership, really. It's a partnership within the public sector, working closely with the private sector to invest. We're currently investing or looking to invest £1 billion worth of capital in the region.
That's a nice number to have in your pocket.
Absolutely. Yeah. So over the next 15 years, we will create up to 4,200 new jobs in the economy. And 240 million of that billion is already ring-fenced and being contributed by UK and Welsh government equally, so 120 million from each. And we have a portfolio of projects that we're delivering into key sectors to create these new employment opportunities for young people and people in general within the economy in North Wales.
Fantastic. Well, I'd love to, there's a lot to unpick in that we can come back to for a minute, but just to go a little bit more macro around the kind of Welsh landscape, not the actual landscape, but the business landscape. You know, the numbers say that 75% of Welsh business leaders feel as though they're facing a skills crisis. Can you just tell us a bit about the business landscape and how you perceive the differences in skills across sectors and perhaps a difference according to the Welsh aspect of what you do as opposed to other bits of the country?
Yeah, of course. And I think, we've just conducted, interesting, our own survey in North Wales. So going even more deeper into what employers are saying. And 70% of our businesses are struggling with recruitment and finding the right skills for the roles that they have.
And would you say that's across the sectors that you deal with?
It's across the sectors. So we targeted all businesses in North Wales and 70% said that there are issues.
And again, just sorry to interrupt you, but just to tell listeners, what are the key industries in North Wales? What is the kind of economic landscape like around you?
Yeah, so we've identified the key skills shortages, I think, but we look at them as opportunities as well. So the future skills we think will focus really strongly in the green sector, so renewable industries, and we see that. That key message is an opportunity for us because it means we need to continue to work with skills providers, colleges, universities to develop the courses that will provide those people to fulfill those roles. The project management also has been highlighted as a key shortage, I guess, and this is something we've felt, and I felt particularly in my own team whilst recruiting as well. It's a very scarce resource, and therefore that comes with, an increasing price point for that skill.
So any project managers listening, move to North Wales.
Absolutely. Yeah, and digital skills as well. What we're seeing is that digital it's not specific to any one sector. Actually, every single sector requires people with digital skills, and that's going to increase as the years pass by. So there's a real focus in improving that digital literacy as well.
Yeah, no, that's a huge piece of the puzzle. It's something that I've worked on a bit in my career, and it's still the challenge. Partly is just this binary having skills or no skills, but then it's just ever-changing landscape in digital. You might think, oh, I've just cracked and I sort of understand about social media, and oh my God, now I've got to understand about AI, and wait for it, then it's going to be quantum, and then it's going to be something else. So it is just this constantly shifting landscape, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think the added, I see an advantage in this for Wales is we have our own language.
Yes.
And therefore, we need to, and we do, promote and support the growth of the Welsh language in Wales. But it's about finding then the resource that has the skill, but also able to either bring proficiency in the Welsh language or able to and willing to learn the language as they go into employment as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of thinking about a competitive advantage, having a language. Um, just again, because we haven't talked yet in our series much about these regional differences within the UK. When you think about Wales and the kind of relative decline or not economically compared to the rest of the country, just give me a bit of how you think about Wales and how it sits in the wider landscape of the UK and what we can learn from that sort of more specific local region that we could apply to other places.
Yeah,
Both good and bad, I guess.
yeah, and I think it's 20 years since Wales was devolved.
Is it
Yeah,
20 years this year?
yes,
That's interesting.
I think it is, and we are expecting the announcement of the new First Minister for Wales.
Yes.
Which is a generational
Yes.
change in the leadership of government in Wales as well. And I think that's really significant, as well as being the first Black leader and First Minister in Europe, actually. So a huge advantage and something to be really proud of as a country. I think it gives us the opportunity as a nation to really get under the skin of what today's issues are and how we plan and develop programs and projects for the future. I think one of the perhaps weaknesses in working with government is that sometimes we fail to think long term enough. One of the things I think Wales has is a real focus on future generations. So in 2015, we had the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act come in.
And what is that exactly?
Yeah, so it requires all public sector organisations to comply and work within the Act, which is to really put in place and think about how we prepare for the unborn generation. What do we need to do now in terms of sustainable development so that we leave society in a good place for the generations that come up
And
behind
what kinds
us?
of things does that encompass?
So it's about thinking, climate change is probably one of the, I'm going to use systems thinking language.
Yes.
I am a current systems thinking student with OU.
Okay, very good to hear that.
I finished my maths, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But climate change is a very messy problem. It's a messy issue. It's a global issue. It's something that we all have a responsibility to think about. And I think what the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act does is really focus on sustainable development as an underlying principle of any capital development. So, for example, the growth deal, which I lead, we will think about carbon emissions and biodiversity and ensure that the assets that we're investing in are assets that are as good as they can be and as clean as they can be for our future generations. So our legacy almost is being, we're pushing for a better legacy for our young people of the future.
That's a really interesting piece of legislation, isn't it? I don't often hear about governments taking the time to really plan long term. It's one of the things I think drives businesses quite mad, is just this chopping and changing and not having certainty in the long term policies. So it's a really interesting insight. Just to drill down a bit further on that, what is the generational kind of behaviours in Wales? Do they vary to other bits of the country, and what does the workforce look like compared to other places?
Yeah, so there's a really concerning statistic at the moment that we've seen, the trend developing post-COVID of economic inactivity in the labour market between the ages of 16 and 24.
Oh dear, that's a bad one, isn't it? Because then that becomes systemic.
Very, very worrying. I don't know what the solution is, but I definitely think it needs focus now. If you think about the situation that we are in North Wales, where we're bringing over 4,000 new employment opportunities into the labour market, if we aren't able to target that 16 to 24-year-old in the labour market, then how will we fill those roles? So I think there's a recognition needed that doing more of what we've always done is not working. I think COVID as a pandemic has also, thrown a spanner in the works, and it's a clear message. The increasing trend for me is a clear message that we need to think differently about how work appeals to young people. Um, when I was 19, I started working full time, and haven't stopped since then. But it was very much a culture of going into the office. And so when I was 19, I was observing
Yes.
leaders above me.
You learned how to work.
I was learning how to work. I was learning the behaviors, how to deal with people, how to deal with conflict and difficult situations, how to present myself, how to accept and give feedback. And I think, myself, over COVID, I recruited so many people into my team over Zoom
Yeah, it's
and
different.
proceeded to work with them over 2 years in a very distance and sporadic way, because it was over the pixels rather than in a room together. So I think a lot of that informal learning has been lost. And I think young people probably disadvantaged from that.
Do you think that that's quite specific, again, just to bring it back to North Wales,
Yep.
is that something that you feel is quite disproportionate in your area?
I don't think it's disproportionate. I think it's systemic across the economy. It is a trend that actually last week I heard the CBI note in an economic briefing. Again, one of our senior lecturers in economy and Bangor University, again, reiterated the trend in a presentation that I heard last week, at the end of last week. And I think it's across Wales, and I would be extremely surprised if it's not symptomatic in other countries and beyond as well.
Yeah, I think unfortunately you're right. And well, there are so many benefits in some ways to having a bit more flexibility about where you work and how you work.
Yes.
I completely agree with you. Those first years are essential to be able to appreciate what work is, how to get good at it, and how to get stuff done. I was really struck recently by an interview I saw with Barack Obama, who said, someone was asking about advice for young people and what's the best advice to go and take forward in your life, and he said, just be good at getting stuff done. That's simple. It's that simple. If you're young and you can get stuff done, you'll get more stuff to do, and then you'll get more stuff done, and you'll get more stuff to do. And I really loved that. And I thought we've lost some of that sometimes in how we think about work and skills. And it's just so fundamental, isn't it? Just to come back to your £1 billion, because that really was an exciting number to hear on a podcast. Tell me a bit more about that, how you're going to deploy it, how you work in partnership with businesses, and any examples you can give of businesses in North Wales that you might be working with.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 5 key themes that we've identified for investment. So some of them are targeting areas of chronic market failure, and some of them...
Such as, can you give me an example?
Yeah, so digital infrastructure,
Okay.
I would say. My background is in telecommunications
Okay.
as well. So before I moved into local government, I worked with...
So we both bang our heads about the broadband network in this country. Yes.
Exactly. And so an area of chronic market failure, but such a huge opportunity if we can fill the gap. There are areas in digital connectivity that just haven't been investable from a commercial perspective. In North Wales, we have a lot of rural premises as well. So that's one example. So digital connectivity is a theme within our portfolio.
I'm so happy you said that. Sorry, I can't help but dive into it because it's a special topic for me as somebody who's worked in technology. But I think about this a lot. I often have conversations with politicians, frankly, that go like this. But we've got 90%. And I say, yeah, but that 10% is dragging down the 90% because you're never going to be able to really unleash productivity. Imagine if you are a farm in rural Wales with zero connectivity. How are you meant to do anything, from your tax return to finding new recruits to being able to engage in whatever other things you might need to do as a business? It's so intense, isn't it? And I think we lose that because we kind of think, well, 95% is pretty good, but it's the 5% that's absolutely vital to enable more of us to get more benefit from from all of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and society isn't allowing us to be
No.
digitally disconnected anymore.
No,
And
exactly.
I'm a farmer's daughter from a rural part of North Wales, and it's absolutely that. The
Yeah.
farm is very rural, suffers from really poor connectivity, but then my family are still expected to comply with,
All of the things you have to do
all of
online.
the things that you have to do to be compliant. And, I think post-COVID as well, there is an opportunity within rural areas for higher value employment to go into rural areas because of the ability to work from home. But if you don't have the ability to connect and have parity in that connectivity from your home, then again, you are disadvantaged in the labour economy.
Absolutely, and that's both skills and infrastructure, as you rightly said.
Agreed.
So anyway, digital infrastructure was the first one. We already covered one. We've got the other four.
A bit of a hobby horse for me as well, given my background. But yes, we've got land and property.
Okay.
So there are sort of key sites and premises that just haven't been developed over decades in North Wales, and
Are generally occupied or unoccupied? I mean, is this a kind of
unoccupied mostly? Some of these key sites can be viable commercially, but need core services put in and just some public sector investment to intervene. So we're doing that. We have agri-food and tourism, a key sector for us in North Wales. And, the visitor economy is hugely important for North Wales.
And where do those visitors tend to come from? Educate listeners a bit about what your tourism economy looks like.
I think, less people from Wales travel within Wales as visitors, which I think is interesting. If you look at Scotland, a third of Scottish visitor economy is Scottish people. And we see less of that in Wales. So people do travel across the border, from Cheshire and further. Connectivity between London and North Wales, as I've proved this morning, is really easy as well. 2 hours on the train to Euston from Chester, which is very close to the border. So, and of course, we have so many castles, lots of history, a beautiful coastline. So there are lots of reasons to come and visit North Wales. But what we're seeing less of is the pound per visitor per day it tends to be lower. So I think we need to develop new attractions and maintain the interest in why people would come to North Wales. If they've already been once, why would they come back? And then we've got innovation in high value manufacturing. So in Northeast Wales particularly, we've got a long tradition and a long history of manufacturing.
Can you give some examples of some businesses?
Yeah, so we've got businesses such as JCB located in Wrexham. We've got
famous Wrexham, not the only thing located in
absolutely.
Wrexham.
So Wrexham.
Ryan Reynolds is located in Wrexham, isn't he? I mean, he lives there now, right?
We're doing well. We're doing well in terms of visibility, I think, and there's a lot to be said about.
It's really interesting that as a case study, isn't it?
What has been built in and around Wrexham. We also have,
and that is a skills point, isn't it? Because what it feels to me as just somebody that's watched the programme, not deep in the knowledge like you are, but there's a skill around feeling as though the community has been given some power about itself again, isn't it? And people have been able to, improve the environment through the football club and all the things that happen as the network of the football club gets more successful. It is interesting. It is linked to skills.
Well, football is a powerful machine, isn't it? If I had £1 for every time I've sat in a foreign taxi and tried to explain that I'm from Wales, but the minute you say Gareth Bale, people know exactly where Wales is. And I think, in that perspective, what Wrexham has done really well is engage people through football. And it's gone international. And we, as a result, we have a lot of focus on Wrexham and, as a consequence, the entire region. We've got the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre, AMRC, located in North Wales. So there's a collaboration there with Sheffield University. So it's not just about the manufacturing sector that's there now. It's about innovating with them for the future. So how can we drive innovation into manufacturing so that we safeguard all of those jobs for the future and make them more sustainable alongside sort of the changing environment and climate as well.
Yes.
And then we've got low carbon energy, a
Huge opportunity.
yeah. So in North Wales, we've got offshore wind, we've got power from tidal stream, and we've got one of the most powerful tidal streams, I think, in the top 3 in Europe. So there's
Wow, I did not realize that.
yeah, exactly, tidal currents. So there's and again, it's a space where innovation is just being driven, and we're able to facilitate that innovation through what we have in North Wales. Hydrogen, so the development of green hydrogen and looking at how we can really set North Wales at a global level as a pioneer in that space of hydrogen innovation and green hydrogen, particularly in decarbonisation of industry, but also more long term into transport and decarbonisation of heavy goods vehicles, linking quite nicely with that advanced manufacturing and the sector that you tend to see heavy goods vehicles operate within. And then we've got, yes, how many have I said there? Agri-food and tourism,
I think we're nearly
digital,
either at 4 or 5. I've lost
land
track.
and property, agri-food and tourism, and low carbon energy. Yeah.
That's it. You've done it. I mean, the low carbon energy piece is really interesting, isn't it? One of the things I feel I've learned as president of British Chambers is just how much is going on locally in different places, with slightly different shades of what might be happening. But I feel as though we're still massively underestimating the potential opportunity here.
Yeah.
And I hope that the next shade of whatever government, not a political point, really sees this opportunity in the UK to drive the green economy and therefore massive increase in jobs in this sectors. And just this is something I think we really do have an opportunity to excel at.
I agree. And young people make much more values-based decisions.
Yes, very important point.
And they want to work. So, a couple of my team have really questioned and gone further than this is a job, it will provide me with work and a salary. It's more than that. And I think that's across young people now that are looking to make sure that the value they bring to a role is more, it's in line with sustainable development.
Yes.
It's not adding to the problem that we have in terms of climate change and global warming. And I quite like that. I think it's challenging employers to think about how they adapt their operating models and their businesses to be able to provide those green jobs. And this is a key message for skills providers as well, is how do we equip young people with the knowledge and the skills they need to be able to apply that thinking when they go into work and to challenge the status quo, because we need that generational challenge, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And sometimes I feel as though we give a bit of a bad rap to the young generation, that they're somehow perceived as a bit lazy or wanting everything on their terms, when actually they're facing some pretty intense headwinds. And certainly the young people I meet are challenging us to think about those headwinds differently, from the climate to the cost of living to, whether they're ever going to be able to own anything, really. I mean, I think it's really intense what they're thinking about and how they're perceiving work in that context.
I agree. And, even down to things like how do they get to work?
Yeah.
That thinking about all of the things where we want to get to is in line with what they want. So rather than drive, I know 17-year-olds who are not really keen to drive a car because A, they can't afford it, cost of living. B, they don't want to be adding to the carbon emissions. So what are we doing in terms of designing work and where work exists with efficient and affordable and reliable transport networks, so they can get to work with public transport? And I think that challenge is great. I think it's helping us.
Yeah. Keep the older generation on our toes. And as we're all going to live so long, we're going to need to keep being challenged by the whippersnappers. Owen, just imagine yourself, I could totally imagine you as Prime Minister, but imagine yourself as Prime Minister and thinking about the way that this country works and operates. It's so important to talk about the regionalisation that we've had over the last few decades, whether it's through devolution or other different ways that policy has shifted. Do you think we've gone far enough from your perspective in Wales? What can Wales teach other places in the country? How would you be thinking about this kind of central versus local challenges as a leader of the country, when you're leader of the country?
Wow, what a question. I do think, I think we've got, we're on a journey, aren't we? I don't think, it's a continuous, again, systems thinking. It's a continuous inquiry, and it's a continuous process of identifying what we do well, and therefore what should we keep developing and sharing, and also looking outwards as well to what other countries are doing, how societies are building infrastructure in a way that leads to a more sustainable economy. And I think there is probably, and I know Welsh Government do a lot of this, but perhaps what doesn't happen as much, and it could be an opportunity, is to really take those international lessons and bring them closer to the regions. And we've had the restriction of COVID, and the world basically stopped for a couple of years. But now I feel there's an opportunity to look outwardly, see how people have handled the pandemic, what changes have been made through governments, how other governments are funding sustainable development, and how we can bring those lessons into Wales, but also share what we're doing. And I genuinely do believe that the one thing we've done right is implementing this future Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. It's been challenging. It's been a process of learning, and it still is. But it's put Wales on a platform that globally other countries are now really leaning in to see what we're doing and how we're doing it. And it will continue to be that learning process. And it's quite exciting because it provides an opportunity for us generationally to leave a legacy that hopefully we can be proud of. And the last thing I would want to do is leave employment in, 10 years' time and say, I kind of feel ashamed because the generations coming behind me have a big problem still to face, and they will, because global warming and climate change isn't going away soon. But I'd like to feel like I played an important role in negating some of the challenges.
Yeah, I have no doubt that you personally will do that. But I think you've also kind of summed up brilliantly why often business leaders find it hard to invest in skills, because it is going to be about the future in a way that sometimes the demands of the present can feel totally overwhelming, especially at the minute. You've talked quite a lot in the podcast about this, just about the moment we're in and all the headwinds that businesses are facing, big and small, but prioritizing skills investment very much locally, but also if you are a national business, is so fundamental in ensuring that, to use your words, future-proofing for future generations, isn't it? So I think you've kind of summed up the challenge, but also why the reward is so great and important.
Yeah, and we also probably should mention, we have a regional skills partnership in North Wales. They work within my team, and we work hand in glove daily, so that the roles that we are creating through our investments are being understood by industry, but that the skills providers and the business sector understand what they need to prepare for, and can voice their concerns about their own challenges as well. And the Regional Skills Partnership is a huge accolade for North Wales. They are a small team of people funded by Welsh Government who are so passionate about developing the right skills so that we can, in Wales and in North Wales particularly, put ourselves out there and say, come here and work, or come home and work.
Well, there you go. Well, you heard it here. That's a perfect note to end on. You have described brilliantly why we all need to pay attention to Wales. If not move there and work there. And any project managers, you've got an open job offer. Thank you, Alwen. I wish you much success in your OU degree. Please complete it. I hope I might even see you on a stage to shake your hand and give you your certificate. It's been really interesting to talk to you and hear about the lessons we can learn from Wales. So thank you. I'm Martha Lane Fox, and thank you for listening to our podcast.